Alright, welcome in everyone. This is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and I am joined here by
Mike. What's good?
the fabulous Mike. Alright, our goal for today in this video, we are going to be quickly reviewing the cards that are set to rotate out of Standard when Throne of Eldraine is released. What is it, October 4th?
October 4th, yes.
So we've got about a month left in this Standard. And I think we have two more tournaments scheduled before rotation.
Yes.
So you know, this format is not dead yet, but we are getting ready for the big change because it's a big one, right?
Oh yeah,
four sets are rotating out. What is it? Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan, Dominaria, and M19.
M19.
All of them are hitting the chopping block. They are going to be gone come October 4th, and we are going to get some new cards. Spoiler season, I believe, is going to be starting, if not this week, then next week
already. They start.
Yeah. So we are going to start seeing Throne cards come in. We will do our top 10 Throne common picks for the format once the full spoiler is out. But we just wanted to prepare everyone because we're going to go from an 8-set standard to a 5-set standard. And so what we're losing is going to impact the decks more than what we gain. So this video is meant to, we're going to do our top 5 cards rotating out from each color, and we're going to start with white here.
Yes.
So our number 5 for white. What do we got, Mike?
We got the life linkers. So
no, number 5. Number 5.
I'm sorry. We got the we got Moment of Triumph.
Yeah, Moment of Triumph. Boom.
+2/+2 into end of turn, and you gain 2 life.
Yeah, we have seen white decks utilize this for a very long time. Just, you know, 1 mana for +2/+2 at instant speed is kind of, you know, it's about par for the course in terms of how they've been designing commons, especially for white. We've seen lots of decks use this as their pump spell of choice.
Especially with, like, Healer's Hawks, turn 2, you just gain 5 life.
Well, you usually don't want to cast this on turn 2.
Yeah.
But Moment of Triumph, the fact that you're usually pumping up a lifelinker and then you're also gaining 2 life on top of it, what the white decks have been good at this past season is just racing other aggro decks, and Moment of Triumph just really hammers that home. It's only number 5 on our list because I think Arrester's Zeal. There's lots of other cards that are... there we go. Arrester's Zeal, right? Similar card.
Yes.
Very similar card.
+2/+2.
Doesn't give the gain 2 life, but it does give a relevant effect that I think is worth it for the mana cost. So I do think that this card is going to easily be replaced, but I think that some players would still prefer that they have the 2 life instead of the potential flying.
There's also I think there's a pump spell in core set 20 that gives, I think, +1/+1 and lifelink to on the turn. It's in core set one of the new, but it's 2 mana.
Oh,
I forgot what it's called.
There's Battlefield Promotion from War.
Some cool
here, Moment of Heroism.
Yes, Moment of Herald.
Yeah, so 2 mana and 1 mana is a big difference, but yeah, Moment of Heroism, it fills that niche nicely, right? That Moment of Triumph was where you're winning combat and you're winning the tempo race if you're racing another aggro deck. So that was number 5 for white. Number 4, here we got
Territorial Hammerskull. Ooh,
good old dinosaur. One of the only dinosaurs that really saw play in Standard Pauper, unfortunately. None of the other dinosaurs really cut the mustard, even though the kids love playing with them.
Yeah, in fact, there was that 2/1 something raptor, but yeah, that rarely saw play.
Yeah. But Territorial Hammerskull, 3 mana, 2/3. Whenever it attacks, tap a creature an opponent controls. This really allowed the white decks to just push the offense, right? It was essentially removal, right? Just keeping their best blocker tapped. And it forced them to race you, and with all your lifelinkers, you were winning that race if they were forced to attack you, right? If they only have 1 creature in play and you have a Territorial Hammerskull, they might as well attack you because they're not going to get to block.
Yes.
Right? So, and then you're going to win that race with your Lifelinkers and Healer's Hawks and everything.
We've seen games where this kind of, once this, when the Hammerskull attacked, we just seen this, I think it was in the final, was that match between Flora and Joypaw, that one match where like...
Oh, in the top 4 of the scholarship tournament. Yeah. This guy really put the pressure on. All right, number 3,
Rustwing Falcon.
Trusty Rusty.
Oh man.
Yeah. So in Standard Pauper, like, there are a lot of aggro decks, but the aggro decks really live and die by the quality of their 1-drops.
Yes.
White is still going to keep Healer's Hawk, which is arguably the best
best.
1-drop in the format. So it still has that, but Healer's Hawk loses his buddy, right? The aggro decks, they wanted the redundancy of their 1-drops. And White is losing its second best 1-drop here. So we'll, you know, there might be something in Throne of Eldraine to replace it, but as it stands right now, there's really only Healer's Hawk to fill the 1-drop slot in the White aggro decks.
Yeah, I mean, like some would mention that there's like some cat in War of the Spark. When the more copies it comes, it gets +1/+1.
Oh, that's not a good Magic card. Charm Stray.
Charm Stray.
Yeah, not gonna cut it.
And
there's
Law
Law
Rune,
Reinforcer.
yes.
Okay, fair enough. But yes, in terms of pushing the early aggression, Trusty Rusty will be missed.
Trusty Rusty.
Yeah. All right. Number 2.
Oh, number 2, Silverbeak Griffin. Oh man.
Good old Silverbeak Griffin. Now this one, I feel like this should have been in more decks than it ended up being, but because it was so hard to get copies in paper, then just a lot of people ended up not playing it. I think the only way to get it was in the Ajani Planeswalker deck, and then
the Welcome deck.
One of them came in the 30-card starter deck for White. So it was just really hard to get this card in paper. But it was, I mean, like a 2-mana 2/2 flyer.
Yes.
The rate is just, it's where it needs to be. So we, you know, between this, Trusty Rusty, and Healer's Hawk, the White aggro decks could really just take to the skies, force their opponent to try and race them, and then with the lifelinkers, just always win a race against other aggro decks.
Yes.
But Silverbeak Griffin is no more. All right, and then we kind of cheated on our number 1 for White, but these are functionally the same card. Bishop Soldier and Mesa Unicorn here, right? The 2-mana 2/2 lifelinkers.
Yes.
We saw some White lists playing as many as 8 copies of this card. Most lists ran somewhere between 5 and 6.
Yes.
Right? But this card, as we said, the whole game plan of the White aggro deck was to force your opponent to start racing you, and then your lifelinkers allowed you to win the race. And having redundancy on your 2-mana 2/2 lifelinkers really just allowed them to execute that game plan so consistently. So I think that the White aggro decks are going to have to fundamentally change. Yes, Healer's Hawk is still there. I don't think Charm Stray is going to cut it, but people might try play it.
Then they used to have Law Rune Enforcer, and
you
used to have like
Pacifism, which we haven't seen make too many waves yet. But
there's a 1/3 flyers 2-drop. I think War Screecher and Concordia Pegasus, so there are probably good options after.
Yeah, so there are still good options for White to fill its curve, but I think that they are downgrades if White wanted to focus on the game plan that it's been focusing on.
Yes.
Yeah. But so, you know, War Screecher means that the deck might take a different angle. Concordia Pegasus, strictly worse War Screecher. Where is it? War Screecher right here. Boom. Yeah. So I expect this guy to see a little more play, but yeah. Raise the Alarm also might come fill the void. Yeah. Although this is more of a sideboard card maybe, as we saw Julian dismantle control playing Raise the Alarm. Okay. Moving on to blue.
All right,
in number 5 we have our friend.
Oh no, we have the draw spells.
Oh yeah.
We have
right here, Divination and Secrets of the Golden City. So 3 mana, draw 2.
Yes.
Right. We saw lots of blue control decks over the course of the past 2 years. Lots of them relied on these 2 cards. Yeah. Right. There are still going to be card draw options. The lockets are still in standard.
Tamio's Epiphany.
Yeah, Tamio's Epiphany.
Hypothesizzle.
Notion Rain. Right. Hypothesizzle. But, I mean, these two, these are just so clean, right? For a deck that is planning on winning on card advantage, playing something like Divination or Secrets of the Golden City just makes sure that all your wheels are spinning the way that you want them to. So, maybe we'll get a reprint, right? Like, Divination has been in so many different sets. So, it would not surprise me if we saw something similar to Divination pop up. But, the cards that can replace it right now are distinctly different. So...
We'll miss you guys.
Farewell, Divination, and Secrets of the Golden City. All right, and then I was getting ahead of myself here, but number 4, we got Salvager of Secrets.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think that this guy and its red counterpart are gonna be my hardest to say goodbye to.
Oh yeah, save. Hey, save here.
This effect, like the last core set did not have this effect at common.
No.
And being able to get back a spell from your graveyard, so we might not see this ability at common for quite some time.
Well, there is
they kind of pushed it into the uncommon range, and so Standard Pauper just might not have this effect. And so we, in terms of like the decks that are planning on winning on just inevitability of grinding out your opponent, they're gonna have to try and be a little more proactive now.
And it puts a hit on, like, I mean, this and the red G2 Connector just puts a hit on the graveyard strategy, pseudo graveyard strategy that it has. But then there's still that one from World of Spark, that weird, it's 3 mana, and you pay 2 to return a instant or sorcery spell.
Spellkeeper weird.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is that, but you know.
I mean, but the fact that it has to tap means that your opponent has a window to break up your loop, right? So, you know, a 3 mana 1/4 is okay stats given that it has an extra ability. So maybe that strategy will continue to exist in this form. We'll have to see. But goodbye, Salvager of Secrets.
Yes.
So that was number 4. Number 3, we got another double up, because these are functionally the same card. Cancel and Essence Scatter here. the two counter spells. This is going to be the first standard in a very long time without a cancel.
Yes.
Well, actually, Thought Collapse.
There is Thought Collapse.
Thought Collapse is in the format, but I think Thought Collapse is just a worse cancel because Soul Salvage is, you know, in a fair amount of decks, right? If you cast Thought Collapse against an opponent who cares about stuff in their graveyard, then it's just not as good as being able to cancel something. Sure. So, you know, the effect will still be there, but it is, I think, a downgrade in not every situation, but in enough situations that I think it's relevant. And then Essence Scatter is just
clean.
It's just so efficient at what it does. I mean, those decks that play Essence Scatter never really played well from their back foot, but once you got on your front foot and you got Essence Scatter to just kind of like have answers ready for your opponent's stuff, like this really allowed the control strategies to exist. So we'll see if we get something. Syncopate is also rotating out, so that won't be able to replace it. So.
I mean, there is. I mean, as far as I know, there's still Quench and Convolute.
Both of which I am not excited about.
They get they're just dead cards like later in the game.
Right. So Essence Scatter was good on turn 2 and it was good on turn 15. Yeah. Right? And it was in a deck that wanted to take the game to turn 15. Whereas Convolute and Quench both drop off around turn like 6 or 7. Right? So we don't have any hard counters currently that are going to replace it. Maybe Throne will change that, right? Fairies is one of the themes in Throne.
Maybe just remove Soul.
Yeah, maybe we'll get something along those lines. So that was number 3. Number 2.
Oh man,
the good old
Cold Water Snapper
Turtle.
Turtle the turtle.
So, just I think anytime you have hexproof on a creature, like you need to pay attention to it.
Yes.
Right, and the fact that this allowed the blue control decks to just be like, I have a creature and it's sticking. Yes. Right? Because so often the blue control decks are just trying to play either no creatures to blank their opponent's removal completely, or they're only playing creatures with enter the battlefield effects. Yeah. Right? So that their opponent's removal, you know, they can use their removal, but they already got their value out of the creature. And so being able to play something that's just like, this is going to block whether you have a handful of removal or not. Right? Yeah. Like, this is going to attack you 5 times, whether you have a handful of removal or not. It was just so powerful. And in the control mirrors especially, it was one of the most impactful cards that you had to just have a plan for how you're going to fight your opponent's Cold Water Snappers.
Yeah, this was usually like a 1 or 2 of 2, so like you'll rarely see it.
Yeah. So, fare ye well, Turtle, Cold Water Snapper. And our number 1,
Opt.
Good old Opt.
down with OPT.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so Opt, it seems innocuous, right? Just a 1 mana, scry 1, draw a card, but the fact that it triggered all your cares about spells stuff, right? It just smoothed out your draws if you wanted to play a control deck. The blue-red control deck that I was playing, like, usually you don't want to play cards like Opt in a deck like that, but the deck wanted to play these instead of more lands because it was better in the late game, and you could discard it to Hypothesizal.
True.
Right? So Opt just goes into so many different decks, whether it's We Dragonauts decks or control decks.
I think we've seen it once on a mono blue deck. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know that. We haven't seen mono blue in a long time.
Yeah. Well, I built a no, I think that was before Ixalan came out. Never mind. Yeah, but I do think that the We Dragonauts archetype is still going to exist, but losing Opt is a really big hit against it. Yeah, so we got some honorable mentions in here as well. Mystical Herald, Dive Down, right? One with the Wind, Omen Speaker, Scholar of Stars, my blue-white artifact value deck. But they didn't quite make the list. All right, Black, number 5.
Queen's Agent.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss this one too. So when I would build my blue-black control decks, I always was torn between playing Queen's Agent or Coldwater Snapper on 6. Like, Coldwater Snapper just made... it was for sure going to hold the ground because they couldn't use the removal spells on it. But Queen's Agent, if you ever got to untap with a Queen's Agent and start attacking with it, like, the game was just over, right? Because you were just gaining 3 or 4 life a turn. And at that point, where you have reasonable control over the game and then you're gaining life, that was just, you know... They couldn't fly over you at that point. They couldn't top deck burn at that point. So Queen's Agent was just... great.
It was a way to get back in the game against especially the red decks.
Yeah. And oddly enough, Explore was a really good mechanic to have on this, even though, like, by 6 mana, most decks don't want to draw more lands. But the control decks, you know, they were reasonably happy to draw their 7th land off of Queen's Agent because they could just use their mana so well. So Queen's Agent, I think... there aren't very many efficient lifelink creatures in Black, but I think this was the best one. And, and we are losing it. What do we got? Number 5.
Abnormal Endurance.
Oh, yes. Where is it?
Oh, right under Pyromancer. Second row.
There it is. There. I was right next to it. Okay. So Abnormal Endurance. Black aggro never really got a foothold in this season.
No.
But I did build a variety of different black aggro decks. Black red,
mono black one.
He was playing mono black aggro. I was playing black red sacrifice. We saw Jeff try and brew with mono black aggro there at the end. And I think that this is Black's best trick, just because so many of their creatures had either enter the battlefield triggers or when they die triggers, and being able to just like trade up your creature and then re-trigger its enter the battlefield or when it dies trigger, it was just your best trick. So we saw Black aggro be almost tier 1 back when Supernatural Stamina existed, which was exactly this card just for 1 black instead of a black and a colorless.
What was it? Amonkhet?
Yeah, it was an Amonkhet,
okay.
Which was a really fast format. But you know, the downgraded version of it was still very solid, and I don't know what Black aggro is going to have to fill the void with this rotating out. Like, Blade Brand just doesn't quite do the same thing, which is what the 2 mana black combat trick is in M20. Blade Brand is this casting cost. Target creature gets Death Touch and you draw a card.
Ooh, okay.
So, like, it's a good trick, but it doesn't, you don't get the extra value, right, of having the enter the battlefield trigger as well. So that was our number 4. What do we got? Number 5, we got another double up here. Fungal Infection and Skullduggery. These were very similar cards, right? If you were a go-wide deck or a control deck, you wanted Fungal Infection.
Yes.
If you were an aggressive deck, you wanted Skullduggery. Basically, like, the dream is you attack with 2 dudes, and right? They block one, and then you're just like... or they block both of them.
Yes.
And then you're just like, shrink one of your guys, buff up my other guy, and then you get a clean 2-for-1. So Skullduggery was really good. At worst, this was in combat, your creature gets +1/+1, and theirs gets -1/-1, which is effectively a Moment of Triumph, without the life gain. But this card was just so versatile. If there were to ever be a black deck that we didn't really see this past season, but if there were to be a black deck, this card would have definitely been in it. And then Fungal Infection, similar. Right, from the control perspective, when you're planning on being attacked, they attack you with 2/1 toughness guys, you kill one and then block the other, and you live the dream. I've had that happen a couple of times. It feels good. And then, of course, in the not very often played, but always kind of on the fringes of things, the go wide black decks, Fungal Infection was the go-to 1-mana interaction. So both of them are rotating out. But, Disfigure is in the format now, so there will be replacements at 1 mana.
And they're still deadweight if you consider that.
Yeah, it's less tricky, but it still gets the job done. All right, number 2.
Oh, man, this is a hit. This is a hit.
I have cast this card so many times. So Dusk Legion Zealot, 1 black, 1 colorless for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Just... in any deck that's playing Soul Salvage, right? Like, just playing this guy, even if you don't get to trade it with a creature of theirs, just having it on the battlefield, maybe you peck at them a couple times, maybe you chump block something and gain some life, but...
You got its value.
It replaced itself, you're probably going to Soul Salvage it back at some point and draw more cards, and, this card is just great. It's still seeing play, and... the black decks are going to have to fundamentally rethink themselves. Yeah, like Burglar Rat is still in the format, which is like the opposite of this, but you still get similar value.
True.
But it's very different, because Burglar Rat is lowering the number of resources in the game total, whereas Dusk Legion Zealot is increasing it.
Yes.
So it's very different decks that want that. Like, you're still playing an attrition game, but it's a different kind of attrition game. So, goodbye, Dusk Legion Zealot. All right, and then number 1,
Woo!
We got Moment of Craving.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this card is just so efficient at what it does, right? 2 mana, instant speed, -2/-2, and you gain 2 life. All the decks that want to take the game long just want to slam 4 of these into it.
It's like that's auto 4.
Yeah. And so, like Disfigure and Murder are still in the format, so they're still going to have like decent removal options, but just the fact, like, killing a dude and gaining 2 life against an aggro deck just feels so good. And
there's Soren's Thirst, but then because it deals damage, there's cards like God's Willing that just kind of...
Yeah. Well, the, damage is strictly worse than -2/-2, because, we saw, what was that kid's name who made top 8 with the Black-White Vampires deck in the December tournament?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Is it Austin?
Austin, yeah.
Austin. So Austin was playing Black-White Vampires, and we saw him make that play a whole bunch that day, where he was just like, block your dude, shrink it, gain 2 life, right? Get my life link from my block. And so, the being able to win combat with the -2/-2, like, this is just miles better than Soren's Thirst. Not to mention that it's infinitely easier to cast. Black is a really, really steep casting cost.
Yes.
So that was black. There were a couple honorable mentions here. Vicious Offering, similar to Moment of Craving, but very different decks wanted it. And then Thallid Omnivore, right? Just the go wide strategies. They never really took off, but Thallid Omnivore was always waiting for someone to want to play go wide. I had a sweet Active Treason Thallid Omnivore deck that...
you just sacked...
Yeah, you steal their dude, bash him with it, and then sack it to, like, Thallid Omnivore or Vicious Offering or something. Alright, moving on, we got red. Number 5 for red. What is that? Oh, yeah. Good old Gitu Chronicler.
Yeah. So it's just like Salvager of Secrets?
Yeah. Gitu Chronicler with Soul Salvage was... I made way too many decks that were centered around that. But I actually built the black-red version of the deck before I built the blue-black version of the deck.
Oh, okay.
because it existed, right? Dominaria came out before M19.
Mm-hmm.
So before M19 came out, I had the blue-black version made, and it was like, this is so great. It beats anything that's not playing hard counters.
Yeah.
And then the blue-black version came out, and it just
kind of just
like beat most of the same stuff, and it beat the black-red version. So the black-red version didn't have too much time in the sun. Like, it had a much better aggro matchup, but it just lost so hard to blue decks that had cancel and essence scatter in them. But yeah, G2 Chronicler plus Soul Salvage, those were the days. Goodbye.
Oh, number 4. We cheated on this 4.
Oh yeah. So I would never have thought to include these, but Julian coming in second place in 2 scholarship tournaments in a row means that Swashbuckling and Frenzied Rage need to be on this list because that deck is not nearly as good without these, right?
Yeah, and it's still, like, I think with the rotation coming, this deck seems to be prime. Well, this is from my standpoint.
Well, it loses, like, what is it going to replace these with? Like, it's not going to play Marauder's Axe. Is it going to play Feral Invocation? Like, I think that the deck is going to have to fundamentally change.
Turn to green-white.
Yeah, like, Healer's Hawk is still in the format. God's Willing is still there. Fencing Ace, but...
Oh, it loses Knight's Pledge, 2 in white. Ooh, man.
Yeah, so like all of the auras that were a part of that Boros Pants deck are leaving. So goodbye Swashbuckling and Frenzied Rage.
Yep. Julian, you gotta come with a new deck, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Number 3.
Ooh, our 1-drops.
No.
Oh no, but no.
The 2-drop.
Our 2-drop.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Ashino Pyromancer was head and shoulders above all the other red 2-drops. There's still some good options that are going to be sticking around, but. It was like you built your red deck, and it was like, okay.
This was automatic already.
Yeah.
Just extra reach. Ooh.
Burning Prophet is probably the number 1 now. Burning Prophet actually might have been number 1 above this in certain builds if you were playing a lot of spells, but after Burning Prophet, it falls off pretty hard.
Yeah.
Like, Pack Mastiff is there.
There is also
yeah,
the Fire Urchin.
Yeah, Fire Urchin, but there's not too much more.
What did
Ornery Goblin. Yeah, and that's about it. So we're gonna have to see Chandra's Embercat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to see what Throne brings us for the 2 mana to fill the red deck. But Burning Prophet, I mean, Burning Prophet does a whole lot of heavy lifting, but I don't think its shoulders are that broad for it to carry the entire 2-drop slot on its own. Pack Mastiff is probably okay.
Which one is Pack Mastiff now?
The one that you had super high. This one.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so that's a good starting point, but I hope that something better gets printed for the sake of the red mages out there. So that was number 3. Number 2, we got another double up. As we said with the white decks, right? The aggro decks really just lean super heavy on redundancy on their curve, and red is losing 2 of its best 1-mana creatures, G2 Lava Runner and Fanatical Firebrand. Like, it's gonna have to play Scorch Spitter and Grim Initiate now, which are like, they're not the worst, but I feel like they're just a significant downgrade. Like, Fanatical Firebrand was just so versatile, and G2 Lava Runner turning into a pretty good top deck in the mid game. Like, I don't know. I mean, Scorch Spitter just seems bad to me. I don't.
There's also Torch Courier, but I mean
that seems worse than Scorch Spitter. Like, I'm not mad at Grim Initiate. Like, Grim Initiate does work. Scorch Spitter, I feel like we should do better than Scorch Spitter. Spear Spewer, not gonna cut it. So goodbye, red 1-drops. We'll see if you get replaced. And then, of course, number 1 here.
Man, this is it.
This is the biggest hit to red. Lightning Strike. Again, we haven't had any downshifted cards come up yet, but we do allow downshifted rarities in our youth standard proper tournaments. We know that this is different from MTG Arena rules, but sidebar, MTG Arena did not have a standard proper event this season, so maybe they're like rotating. Maybe it's gonna come. Maybe I just haven't checked the schedule. Probably it's gonna come in the next couple weeks, but they haven't had one yet this season, so maybe they're just phasing out the format. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, back to Lightning Strike.
Oh man.
Yeah, if you were a red deck before, if you were an aggro red deck, then you were playing for Lightning Strike.
You need to put in a Skewer the Critics and a Direct Current.
Yeah, I mean Shock is sticking around, thankfully, but Lightning Strike is getting the axe.
Wizards, if you're watching, please give us Lightning Bolt.
God, no one's.
Please give us Lightning Bolt.
No, no one wants Lightning Bolts in Standard. All right, last color here, green. Number 5. We had to green is really just kind of good at doing one thing in this format. So we had to dig a little deep into the barrel to find the last couple of slots for these. But we have number 5 listed as Baloth Gorger.
Yeah.
And I built a couple of different Baloth Gorger decks. Like, building ramp decks when you don't have big flashy rares to ramp into is really hard. But Baloth Gorger, I had a good green-black ramp deck, and I was toying around with a green-red ramp deck. And Baloth Gorger fit very nicely into those decks, because you could ramp, you play a ramp spell on turn 1 or 2, play Baloth Gorger on turn 3, and then, it was probably bigger than everything else that your opponent had.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll get double blocked or something. And then in the late game, just being able to turn it into a 7/7. So it filled the different spots on the curve, which is what the ramp decks need. Yes. Unfortunately, I think ramp is just too inconsistent of a strategy in Standard Pauper when you don't have the oops I win mythic rares to ramp into.
You know what's funny? When I look, there's no Colossal Dreadmaw in M20. I don't think I saw any Colossal Dreadmaw.
They have Vorst Claw. It's an elemental.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It does not have trample, but it's a 6-mana 7/7, and it's an elemental, which is relevant for all the synergies in the set. So number 4, we have
Deep-Root Warrior.
Deep-Root Warrior. Yeah. So it just a 2-mana 2/2 that could attack into almost every other 2-drop profitably. It just the green aggro deck, the mono green aggro deck. This was the go-to 2-drop. Storaform Hybrid is sticking around, so it's still going to have that, but Storaform Hybrid played a very different role in the deck, protecting you against Mana Flood, whereas this guy just allowed you to get on board early and take a commanding front foot position.
Also with Grove Stalker, is this a 2/1 unblockable essentially?
Oh, I didn't pull that guy out. Guilt Grove Stalker.
Right,
there it is, yeah.
Grove Stalker.
So it can't be blocked by power 2 or less.
So which is pretty much everything else.
Yeah, everything else in the early game. So he was... This was a very good aggressive 2-mana play. So goodbye Deep-Root Warrior and Guilt Grove Stalker. Number 3, we got Jade Guardian. So one of the reasons that the mono green aggro deck was so good was because it just got to incidentally play these hexproof creatures that were pretty solid on its curve.
Oh yeah.
Even if they didn't have hexproof. I don't think you would play Jade Guardian if it didn't have hexproof, but a 4-mana 3/3, or it's versatile. You can pump up something else if you want to. But then just being able to have main deck hexproof dudes against the control decks.
Yes.
And these guys are perfectly serviceable in the aggro mirrors as well. So Jade Guardian kind of allowed the mono green deck to have the best of both worlds in that sense. So farewell Jade Guardian. Yes. And your friend,
oh man, your buddy,
over here at number 2, we got Jungleborn Pioneer.
Yes.
Part of me wanted to include Yavimaya Shepherd in this, but because they both go wide, but Pioneer, I think, very solidly deserves the spot itself because the token has hexproof.
Yes.
So we saw the Bant Aura's deck being able to play that. Even just the green aggro deck, incidentally, having a hexproof token came up a lot when you wanted to move in on a pump spell or something like that. And just being able to create 3 power and 3 toughness for 3 mana that was spread out,
two
right?
bodies, yeah.
So Very, very, very solid card. We're sad to see you go, Jungleborn Pioneer. And then, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, we have
Llanowar Elves.
Llanowar Elves at number 1. This guy was very, very good.
Yes.
Llanowar Elves was printed in Alpha. So
Yeah.
it's been
It's
in
there for a
Magic
while.
from the beginning, and it's been good in Magic from the beginning. And so just being able to make that extra mana on turn 2, right? And if you don't use the mana, then you have a body to
1/1.
attack with, right? So the mono green aggro deck before Frilled Sandwalla came back, it was only playing Llanowar Elves as its 1-drop.
That's right.
But it was so good that
yeah.
it could carry the weight of the 1-drop slot on its own. So yeah, Llanowar Elves, we are sad to see you go.
We hope we get. I hope we have something different, something like that in
I don't think they're gonna print another 1 mana because in real standard, like, green has just been so dominant in real standard, like between like Nissa and Risen Reef and Cavalier of Thorns and all of that. Like, you don't need to give green a power boost. Like, green is still gonna be competitive with just Leafkin Druid and Paradise Druid in real standard. But that's an aside. All right, and then last but not least, well, so the honorable mentions from green, Sapling Migration was a great sideboard card, or if you wanted to go wide, and then Elvish Rejuvenator for the ramp decks, right? It was similar to Dusk Legion Zealot. It just got you on the board instead of a card in your hand. But yeah, those are the green cards. Oh, you wanted to mention the Dino?
Yes, I mean, even those in the sideboard. It was so cool. It was so fun to play with. There we are.
Good old Overgrown Armasaur. Yeah, so Overgrown Armasaur was one of the best sideboard cards for the green decks against the Lightning Strike and Shock decks, because if they wanted to remove your blocker, then you got to poop out more blockers. So, good old Armasaur. Alright, and then lastly, we got the artifacts here. We are saying goodbye to Sky Scanner.
Oh, man.
I built a couple of Sky Scanner decks. Not all of them were blue, so Cloudkin Seer is not going to strictly replace Sky Scanner. The fact that you know, any deck could play this.
Oh yeah.
I think, you know, it didn't see a ton of play, but it will still be missed. I think I had it in the Black-Red Sacrifice deck. Just to have more cantrips to sacrifice or to abnormal endurance.
Didn't you have that in your blue-white artifacts deck too?
Yeah, it was turning on Scholar of Stars and Gearsmith Prodigy.
Yeah.
Good old Sky Scanner. All right, number 2, we have Jousting Lance. So Jousting Lance was kind of like the mirror breaker in some ways for the creature mirrors, because it allowed you to, like, make a super creature that couldn't be blocked very well, and to just, like, get extra value out of your creatures while you were just staring at your opponent, right?
Yeah.
If the board was mucked up, you throw an equipment like this on it, and even though it's expensive, you're getting this really, really high impact, right?
Yeah.
This was probably the highest impact equipment that was in Standard. You know, Marauder's Axe is still around, but not getting the first strike, I think is a big hit. Like, Marauder's Axe, I think, is only going to see play in the Flyers decks because they just care about the damage.
Yeah.
But the first strike of Jousting Lance, and then the extra toughness from Short Sword, which is, spoiler warnings, are number 1. Like, they really allowed the equipment to be good in creature mirrors as well as against the removal heavy decks. So Jousting Lance, the lack of quality removal in the format going forward, I think, is going to fundamentally change the way that the aggro versus control matchups play. So we'll see how that unfolds. And then, of course,
Short Sword, man.
Good old Short Sword.
Like, I mean, at first, like when Sean first started using this, I think, wait, why Short Sword? Then, like, he explained it was like a really good mono sync, like any. So I started testing it out, and like before Short Sword, there was Honor Kopesh too.
Hone Kopesh.
Kopesh, yeah. So, like, yeah, this is.
In that old format, I had Hone Kopesh pegged as the best card in the entire format.
Really?
Yeah, because that was in Amonkhet, where everything in Amonkhet was, like, super aggressive, right? Because of Exert and what was the other keyword? The one where they come back.
Not Aftermath.
Unearth.
Oh.
No, whatever it was,
Yeah.
where they
I think it's Aftermath.
exhume. No, whatever it was. Sacred Cat came back from the graveyard as a zombie. That's so like everything was pushed to be super aggressive, and so having like cheap equipment to just move around in your aggressive deck that wanted to only have 3 lands in play, right?
So,
Like it was just really good. So I had it in mono red, I had it in mono white, I had it in mono blue, I had it in blue black aggro, right? And it was also in Kaladesh, so there were a bunch of artifact matters stuff, right? Tap my Hone Kopesh to cast my Bastion Inventor.
What is that? Improvise.
Yeah, improvise. So Hone Kopesh was so good in that format, and we saw Short Sword kind of fall off towards the end of this format, but I think that it's still really good, especially in the white aggro decks. You know, if you have draw a Short Sword and your opponent doesn't in a creature mirror,
Yeah,
right? Like you're just gonna get that little extra bit of value every time that you have any sort of discretion over how to enter combat, right? So you just eke a little bit of extra value out of each of your creatures each turn with the Short Sword.
Sure.
So, and then against control, you know, like if their plan is to just like kill all your important creatures and leave you with a bunch of, you know, little dirtly creatures,
Yeah,
well, all of a sudden your dirtly creatures are all now must kills as well. So you will be missed, Short Sword. I do hope that Throne comes out with some good common equipment, because I think that equipment adds a nice little wrinkle to any simple format such as this. But you know, that was our list. Hopefully we hit on all the main pillars here. If you think that we missed something,
just leave a comment.
Oh, we purposefully did not include any of like the tribal payoff stuff, just because all of the stuff that makes it good is like River Herald's Boon.
Oh yeah.
Buccaneers Bravado, that tribal stuff. Anointed Deacon. Yeah, like we didn't really see any of the tribal decks really take off.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone was probably Vampires. Was
Vampires saw some success at one of the scholarship tournaments. We saw Pirates do pretty well. We saw Merfolk do pretty well leading up to the first scholarship tournament. But then neither of them performed at the scholarship tournament. So, you know, didn't mention them here just because, like, they...
I guess that set starts...
Without the support cast, like, none of the payoff cards were going to be there. So, like, we tried to focus this video on cards that, if they were in the new format, they would be played, but since they're not, they are going to... You're going to need to find replacements.
Because the Ixalan block makes focus a lot on the tribal strategies.
Yeah, and now
like
they are all gone. Alright. That is it. Let us know what you think in the comments. Would love to hear your opinion. Do you agree, disagree? Did we have any egregious cards that we left out? Let us know in the comments section, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Oh, really quick.
When's the next tournament?
The next tournament is this Saturday at the Planet.
This Saturday at the Planet.
Then the 15th will be at Westside, and it'll be at their new location. And that will be the last tournament prior to rotation. So, yes, September 7th and 15th.
Yeah, there we go. Boom. So, hope to see everyone there, and then we'll do at least one more recap video of the metagame, even though the metagame is going to die pretty soon.
It's kind of shifting towards just white X aggro for the most part.
Yeah, so we're seeing pacifism decks finally get their time in the sun. But yeah, we'll have one more video of that, and then we'll also do our set review once, or top 10 for the set review once
the common dump comes in.
Yeah, which should be about a week before
Yeah.
this set comes out. So yeah, we'll keep you guys posted, and we'll catch you later. Peace.
Laters.